What is fire safety? Fire safety is addressed in specific OSHA standards for record keeping, general industry, construction, and maritime. Fire safety is everyone's job and responsibility at a workplace or worksite. Threats to fire safety, also known as fire hazards. Employers should train the workers about fire hazards and how to deal with it. Students also should know and learn about fire safety. Therefore, we must have an emergency evacuation plan for building, workplace, and many more. If we have more than one workplace or worksite, each of them should have an emergency evacuation plan. Before that, we must know the types of fire extinguisher. There are 4 of them in this picture. The first one is water in red color. The second one is powder in blue color. The third one is foam in cream color. And the last one is carbon dioxide in black color. But usually, most fire extinguishers for homes and public spaces are classified as Class A, B, C.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Nama saya Amir Akila Mintadi Aziz dan saya dari kelas DEM 1A. Nombor matrik saya ialah 15 DEM 20F 1011. Hari ini saya akan menerangkan tentang Emergency Evacuation Plan. Dan apa yang anda dapat lihat di sini. Dan apa yang anda dapat lihat di sini, ini adalah Emergency Evacuation Plan di dalam PISAS Perhentian Susah Dahsyat di bahagian bengkel. Jadi apa yang anda dapat lihat di sini ialah bengkel iaitu bengkel mesin, bengkel fitting dan bengkel welding ataupun dipanggil bengkel kimpalan. Apa yang dapat dilihat di sini, bengkel-bengkel ini boleh menjadi punca kebakaran. Ini kerana terdapat banyak bahan logam yang boleh menyebabkan kebakaran. Jadi ada kata saya punya location di bengkel mesin. So, apa yang saya perlu buat apabila menghadapi kebakaran ialah menghidupkan alarm kebakaran yang berada di bahagian sini. Dan selepas itu saya akan bergegas ke pintu kecemasan yang berada di sini. Dan selepas itu saya akan mengikut laluan yang telah diarahkan untuk mengurangkan risiko bahaya. So dengan arah laluan yang telah diberi ini, saya akan sampai ke padang kod ataupun assembly point. Assembly point ni ia untuk pengumpulan mangsa-mangsa kebakaran ataupun pengumpulan semua orang yang sedang menghadapi kebakaran. Kenapa saya pilih padang kod sebagai assembly point? Ini kerana padang kod ni mempunyai keluasan yang amat besar dan ia boleh memuatkan beratus-ratus orang. Dan juga padang kod ni berada jauh daripada bengkel mesin ataupun di bahagian ataupun di kawasan bengkel yang boleh menyebabkan kebakaran. Dan itu sahaja dari saya. Terima kasih.
This is the symbols for fire escape. First, we have your location symbols. Second, we have escape road symbol. Third, we have emergency exit symbol.
Next, this is the symbol for assembly point. And the second last one is fire alarm call point and the symbol. Last one is fire extinguisher symbol.
Emergency procedures are actually important to all workers out there. It can prevent accident on it. So the first procedure is make sure alert the alarm sound, which means never ignore or assume the alarm is false or the result of a test. Everyone must evacuate the building by the way of the safest and the closest exit and all the stairways. And the second procedure is stop any activities and evacuate the building. If possible, only bring your personal things such as your IC. Then never ever bring any bulky or heavy stuff such as electronics if the incident happens in workshop and house staff and leave the place immediately. And the third step is evacuate the building through the nearest exit routes, which means the victim should go the nearest and safest stairways or routes are located. Besides that, make sure the evacuation routes are clear from any fire or hazards. Make sure to unlock any door to avoid panic during the fire incident happens. Okay, the fourth procedure is report to the appointed assembly point. Once the victim arrives to the assembly point, immediately report to the person in charge. Inform to the person who given fire safety duties and responsibilities. Okay, what you going to inform to them? So tell them the emergency responder about any information regarding the situation, routes and safety equipments. After that, report any missing individual to the person in charge. Okay, for example, if you realize that your friend are missing in the polytechnic, immediately you report to the nearest lecturer that you know and beside you. Okay, after reporting, wait safely at the assembly point. The victim should stay at the assembly point until the person in charge gives further instruction. Until that, do not re-enter at the building. So in this slide, I'm going to explain the easiest method that could make us understand much better. So the first step is when a fire incident happens, do not panic because the panic will trigger for others and then press the alarm button. The second step is if possible call the fire brigade. The third point is take the nearest emergency exit, which called as pintu kecemasan. Okay, the fourth point is do not run because it might injure to you and others. Do not stop to collect your personal belongings. Do not use lift because lift has the electronic components, so it might create explosion during the fire incident. So please use staircase. Get to know the direction for the emergency assembly point by the maps stamped in the wall building. After reach the assembly point, make sure your friends and colleagues are there and safe. And lastly, you can seek for medical assistance if you need one. And please do not return to the building until the person in charge gives you further instruction. So, inside the plan, we must include some steps that we should follow inside there. So, the first point is identification of potential emergencies and how to deal with them. Emergency response facilities, location and training requirements. Fire protection, alarm and first aid are also requirements. The procedure, necessary emergency PPE and designer workers for rescues and evacuation. Location of emergency evacuation are also assembly areas or master points. Then lastly is practice the correct response. In order that we should dial the proper designated emergency number, for example, call the fire department. In Malaysia, we should call 999 or 112 for the rescue department, and then provide the information as the two types of location of emergency and what assistance is needed. Arrange to have one employee meet emergency vehicles at the gate or the property entrance. Extinguish fire is needed is very important for the emergency place. Shut off main gas supplier if necessary. Shut off main electrical vehicle if necessary too. Close all the fire doors and evacuate buildings and sites. And that's all from me. Thank you for listening.
We all have to be prepared for the possibility of an emergency incident on a work site. For this reason, it is the legislated responsibility of your employer to have an emergency response plan in place.
This plan must be developed with the workers that may be affected, and it must be kept current and periodically reviewed by everyone involved. The plan must include
the identification of potential emergencies and how to deal with them,
emergency response facility locations and training requirements,
fire protection requirements,
alarm and first aid requirements,
the procedures necessary, emergency PPE, and designated workers for rescue and evacuation,
locations of emergency evacuation assembly areas or muster points,
and there must be regularly simulated emergency exercises and training so that everyone knows and practices the correct response.
In an emergency, the designated emergency person who is first on scene must assess the situation and alert others to sound alarms and draw the attention of others to evacuate.
Activate emergency services by dialing 911 or the designated emergency phone number for your work site. Check with your supervisor. It may not be 911.
Call the fire department if fire, resuscitation, or rescue services are required. Call utility companies when needed. Management will call government departments, family members, and possibly the media.
Provide information as to the type and location of emergency and what assistance is required.
Arrange to have one employee meet emergency vehicles at the gate or property entrance to direct emergency responders.
Extinguish fire, if applicable.
Shut off main gas supply if necessary.
Shut off main electrical breaker if necessary.
Close all fire doors if possible.
Evacuate buildings and site if deemed appropriate, opening all doors to vent gases.
Designated fire wardens and monitors are to make certain everyone has evacuated.
In the event of a site emergency, when you hear an alarm or siren, shut down all work activities and equipment if safe to do so, and proceed to the appropriate assembly area or muster point on foot. Do not drive to the assembly area.
In the case of a flammable gas or combustible vapor leak, your vehicle may be a source of ignition. If the evacuation occurs when you are driving, safely pull off to the side and park. Turn off the ignition, and depending on the work site, you may have to leave the keys in your unlocked vehicle.
Evacuation assembly areas are established and marked.
Some work sites may have a visible windsock. Otherwise, check wind direction with visual aids such as flags and smoke from stacks.
And workers should proceed upwind or crosswind from the source of an emergency to the safest muster point.
If working in a fully operational industrial plant or facility, make certain you are aware of the location of emergency exit gates that are usually installed at regular intervals within the perimeter fencing of these facilities. These gates are intended to facilitate evacuation off the property when safe access to an assembly area is not possible.
And remember, when you hear an evacuation alarm or siren, you don't know the nature of the emergency hazard. It may be a flammable or combustible leak. Consequently, there must be no smoking in the assembly or muster areas, as matches, lighters, and cigarettes may become a source of ignition.
A head count will be taken within the designated assembly areas to ensure all personnel are safe and accounted for. For this reason, it is extremely important that you sign in when arriving for work and that you sign out if leaving. If you haven't signed out when you leave, emergency responders may be placing their lives at risk in a needless search for your whereabouts.
Personnel must remain in the designated assembly areas or muster points until the head count is completed. You must wait for notification from a company representative that it is safe for you to return to your work area.
Always check the emergency response plan and site map or diagram for wind direction indicators, first aid stations, alarms, assembly areas, and emergency exits. On a busy work site, emergency locations often change to accommodate construction progress.
It is your job to stay informed. If you don't know or have any questions about first aid or muster point locations, don't hesitate to ask your supervisor.
Workers must review the emergency response plan and emergency procedures prior to commencing work and regularly at tailgate safety meetings.
Make certain you know the alarms and sirens and specifically what they mean to your job site. Your supervisor will identify the alarms for you. Suitable emergency vehicles may be required to be present for certain isolated or high-risk work sites.
In the case of a fire drill or a false alarm, once the alarm has been cancelled, wait for an announcement from a company representative that it is all clear to return to work. An informed, diligent, and safe workforce with a concern for each other and with training for emergency evacuation is critical to the health and safety of every worker on a construction project or work site.
Thank you for staying alert, aware, and proactive. And thank you for watching.
Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. My name is Wanufata binti Mio Baharum. Today I will present about promoting the assembly point. Importance of assembly point. Why assembly point very important? Because fire are often high stress situation and some people will respond with panic. Instead that people are guided to a gathering place to prevent them from scattering. Factor to consider for assembly point. Number one is size. The size assembly point must be big enough to accommodate all students. Polytechnic is large and polytechnic need more than one assembly point, especially if the building has multiple exit points. Number two is access. For fire assembly point to serve their purpose, they must be easily accessible and have an obstructed pathway leading to them. Number three is backup. Its assembly point is unable to be used on the day a fire strikes. It is vital that there are backup options available. This is to ensure that the fire safety procedures can still go ahead with minimal confusion. 4 is location. Large, wide and open area are preferred for fire assembly point, but we should not be located where we may hinder the arrival of the emergency service. For example, is car park. Number 5 is distance. The assembly point should be a suitable safe distance away from the building, far enough away to be clear of possible smoke or heat be generated from the building. It is to avoid us from shortness breath when inhaling smoke. Number 6 is under danger. Don't automatically assume you are clear of danger or you have left the affected building. Check for any hazards outside of the building, such as vehicular movement and any foreseeable risk, and to make sure students are aware of the potential hazard. Number 7 is inform and advise. To ensure that evacuation can run smoothly during both fire drill and actual fires, students need to be fully aware of the fire evacuation procedure and also the location of the assembly point and backup assembly point. And last is number 8, fire warden. A step we cannot afford to miss is to appoint a suitable number of fire wardens for the size and type of building that we occupy. Fire warden will be responsible for the leading evacuation procedures and in liaison with the emergency service.
In conclusion, in order to reduce hazard or most critical hazard rate, the employer should show commitment towards safety and health practice and therefore give full priority to promote and enforce the safety and health rules in workplace. The management and workers need to provide appropriate procedures for use in moving in and out of a place. A fire emergency evacuation plan (FEEP) is a written document which includes the actions to be taken by all staff in the event of fire and the arrangement for calling the fire brigades. At minimums, your fire prevention must include a list of all measures, fire hazard, a proper handling, storage procedures for hazardous material, potential ignition source and their control, and the type of fire protection equipment necessary to control each major hazard such as a warning signs, emergency plan, and assembly point. So that's all from us. Thank you for watching.